United States avows, a well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. This amendment has become the epicenter for ferocious national disputes about individual rights. Should any citizen of the United States deserve a right to withhold a gun without license or registration? Gun ownership is a right provided by the Second Amendment. Thus, there is no point in arguing it. However, just because it is a right does not mean that there cannot be rational limits. Over the past 10 years, there has been a rampant increase in gun violence. The Brady Center, a gun violence prevention campaign, contends that with the greater access to guns, it is more common for children and teens to die from firearm-related injuries. With the liberty to possess weapons comes the liberty to use them. Like the popular saying goes, power corrupts. This is nonetheless very true. Power distorts the natural ability to think. We can see examples of this throughout history, as the world's greatest leaders take turns for the worst. The infamous Genghis Khan, Julius Caesar Augustus, and Richard Nixon can all be categorized into this formula. The Castle Doctrine, more popularly known as the Make My Day Law, is now in effect in Colorado and 31 other states. This law allows homeowners to use deadly force when protecting themselves in their own homes without persecution, of course. This leads to my question: should we actually be protecting ourselves from none other than ourselves? 2 high school students shot and killed 15 of their peers and themselves at Columbine High School in 1999. And in 2007, a crazed gunman shot up Virginia Tech, killing 32 people and wounding more. This carnage has proven to be 2 of the deadliest shooting sprees in U.S. history, according to Fox's news article, Killers in Schools. Is this the kind of outcome my opponent seeks? Guns are power, an equation that can only lead to destruction.
Guns provide necessary protection and defense for defenseless victims. People are responsible for crimes and not guns. The Second Amendment to the Constitution is in the Constitution and it's protected by that. Guns actually decrease crime instead of increase crime. As my opponent said, it is a right of the people to keep and bear arms. It is under the Constitution and under that protection. She said that more guns means more crime, and that liberty is a responsibility, and that power corrupts. Guns first provide necessary protection and defense for defenseless citizens. A recent study by criminologist Gary Kleck showed that guns are used for protection over 2.5 million times a year, which is equal to 6,580 times a day, and if those guns were taken away, that would be 6,580 people who cannot protect themselves and would be murdered or raped. 98% of the time, also by criminologist Gary Kleck, people use guns to defend themselves. They merely have to show the gun to break off the attack. I'm sure my opponent, as a young woman, would agree that the fear of attack is very real and that a bottle of pepper spray would not be able to help that. It is under the protection of the Constitution. Stephen Halbrook, who is an author, said that states are given powers, not rights. Rights are reserved for individuals, and therefore individuals should have the right to keep and bear arms. It is in the Constitution. The first part says that it shall not be infringed, which means gun control is wrong, and that guns in homes are guaranteed to individuals and not state powers. She also said that guns equals power, which is true. Firearms are power. Therefore, we should keep the power with the people and should not be controlled by the government. Guns actually decrease crime. Terry O'Neill, who is an author on gun control, said that with a ban on guns, criminals will obtain them anyway. People set on harming people will not be stopped from hurting them. That means that people in the black market will be able to get guns, and that reduces the protection for the law-abiding citizens that we face if we're not allowed to have guns. It is also important to remember that people are responsible for crime and not guns. If guns kill people, do pens misspell words? The answer is no. Tools can only be used for how people use them. The shootings at Columbine High School and Virginia Tech should never be lessened in their importance and in the tragedy that followed. But it is important to remember that they were people that caused that, and if there was not an availability of guns, that they would harm people in other ways.
My opponent has countered my position by claiming that the right to firearms is for the sole purpose of self-defense. But But as Lawrence H. Tribe says best, almost no right known to the Constitution is absolute and unlimited. Just as freedom of speech is limited to anti-government commercialization and freedom of religion still holds restrictions on some religious practices. Is it too much to ask to be armed with our righteous ideas rather than our weapons? Another point my opponent has brought up is how criminals will obtain guns no matter what. There is a such thing as the National Instant Criminal Background Check System, or NICS. But, however, there are loopholes in this system. Many factors contribute to this eligibility test: previous jail sentencing, citizenship, or mental stability, to name a few. It is mandatory for licensed dealers and stores to require a background check of the firearms buyer. However, the majority of these purchases are illegally bought through illicit gun dealers, especially in places of poverty. In order to accomplish a greater level of safety in our nation, there is no need to ban guns for civilians, but to at least enact a secure and strict process to screen the individual for rightful firearms ownership. Doing so, we can curb access for criminals, felons, juveniles, and those with more than destructive psyches. These types of people do not need to possess firearms to corrupt their minds further.
My opponent has said that there have been laws and programs given to licensed gun dealers to perform background checks. I submit that those background checks are enough. That because we need the protection that we do, a background check, someone who is innocent needs a gun to protect themselves. Those background checks do a fine job of eliminating criminals and those who could potentially do harm. It is not true in all cases, and that is why we need the protection of guns for ourselves. My opponent also said that righteous ideas should be used more than righteous weapons. The question I have for her is, when you're caught in a dark alley and there's a man pointing a gun at you, are your righteous ideas going to save you? No. We need actual physical protection from criminals, and guns provide that.
Our nation is built off of confidence in security, but it is too easy for dangerous people to obtain dangerous weapons in this country. By strengthening law enforcement's efforts to put an end to the illegal gun market, there should be set an organized amount of regulation. This matter now lies in the hands of the future generation of voters. Do firearms and liberty deserve to go hand in hand? I'll let you be the judge.
In conclusion, we have laws and institutes and programs to limit guns from falling into the hands of citizens. If we tighten those, then it reduces the ability for people to protect themselves who are not criminals. I would like to say to my opponent that firearms equal power. Therefore, we should keep the power with the people, not controlled by the government. Thank you.